Hello, my name is Ben, and this is Are We Watching? Welcome to the first episode. Yeah, this is the first episode with your host, me and Angelo. In this, we'll be talking about X-Men 97, our thoughts, and what we think is happening going forward. Don't want to spend too much time on this intro, so hope you enjoy it. Stick around for the whole thing. Leave a comment, whatever. It makes you feel comfortable. All right. That's it. Again, this is Are We Watching episode 1 about X-Men 97 and some other things. That should... Okay, cool. Perfect. That should work. Damn. I never know how to make intros at all because I'm fucking terrible at them. It doesn't make any sense to me sometimes. But when I watch other shit, I'm like, oh man, that's a terrible intro. Make it so much better.
Yeah, you know it when you see it.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. It's terrible. However, excluding that, I don't know. Let me fucking put my hair up and try to keep it out the way.
I knew you were gonna get all up on this thing, so it's just go away from me. Yeah.
Just looking to see what it is. Well, X-Men 97's back. Well, X-Men's back in the form of X-Men 97. Mm-hmm. You're more of a X-Men expert than I am.
I think the word is
Connoisseur.
I would say freak. That's what I would say.
That's good that you said it. I didn't say it at all.
I have an unhealthy obsession with the X-Men. You don't have to.
That's fine. It's fine. I feel that way with small, minute things that don't matter. I have an unhealthy obsession with that. Like there's a Sam's Club by my house that has that somebody, a designer, engineer, they created so when they come to fill the gas, they don't have to go inside. There's a little spot on the outside of it where you don't block anybody's path. It's created specifically for the truck to pull up to the side of it and be able to put their hose over to the gas things.
Okay, yeah.
It's in nobody's way because everybody gets mad when there's a huge gas tanker just in the way taking up all the space.
Yeah.
Completely designed, perfect.
Okay.
I get so furious when I see the gas trucks inside, even when I'm not getting gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my tiny lights where I become, for no reason, I'll just drive by and see it, be like, why the fuck is he doing that? That's so stupid. There's another thing. Yeah, it's terrible. That off on the side. But with X-Men 97 being back, 2 episodes have come out. Overall, I watched it and I thought it was good. I enjoyed the episodes.
Yeah, so... Yeah, as we're doing this, the big premiere came out, which is the first 2 episodes. I thought it was just going to be 1. And probably up until about a couple weeks ago, I wasn't super excited.
That makes sense.
I think that no, it was probably over a month ago where I knew this was coming out since forever ago. And I was kind of like, oh, well, I remember seeing the redesigns, and then it was one of those things that every time I heard new information about this show coming out, I was like, great. Of varying degrees of not a lot of excitement, or even sometimes disdain. Right. Where I was kind of like, oh, Storm has the Mohawk again. I'm just like, great. That's the only update, really. Just stuff like that where I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, right? And then I think seeing the trailer for it is the tipping point for me. Because the trailer didn't do it justice, I think, with how the animation style, after having watched the show.
Yeah.
Watching the 2 episodes, I feel like the trailers didn't do it justice. However, it did make me interested enough to be like, okay, I'm gonna watch this when it comes out.
You like the animation style for it? Because I'm not mad as it as I once was.
Yeah, I think that's how I am.
Okay.
I think that the art style, the animation style,
Feels blocky and slow.
I think it does when it's not in
Stiff.
action.
Yeah, I could see that. Well, also,
Because I thought the action scenes were really, really fluid, and those ones I was excited about. I think that there were definitely other scenes where I'm like, this is, like you had mentioned, slow.
yeah.
Where I'm like, oh, is this, like, it feels intentional at the same time? It's confusing because I don't know what the process was.
Yeah, I don't know what the process to get that either was. I wish it I don't know. There was something about it because I know they try to pull a lot to make it just like it was when it finished back in '97.
Right.
But still, you could update it animation wise and still keep some of the same aspects. Like, I love fucking Venture Brothers. They could have used the animators for Venture Brothers.
Yeah.
They could use the animators for even My Adventures with Superman. Stuff that still look kind of good, and just have them kind of updated more instead of making it look all stiff and a terrible HD version of HD remake version of the show.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a hard sell. I think it's a big task to do.
Yeah.
I think it's a big task to make something look new and old. Specifically, but when we say old, we're talking about the late 90s.
Yeah.
Which was
Forever ago, 50 years ago, depending on your age.
It's not that long ago, but at the same time, and it's not like, I'm trying to think of something. Venture Brothers is a good example. I haven't watched that in a long time, but I think it's a good example. I've only seen a little bit of My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah.
But that to me has a different art style. I think the art
does.
style is a big part of it. I think that what makes it difficult and what I like about it, the art style that I think makes up for the animation, the art style looks like what they did was, in some cases, they took CG animation, which is usually like the worst thing to do.
Yeah.
But then they put like a cell shader over it and then put like outlines. Like they did hard line work over it as well, which I think looks really cool. I think I like the way that light is on the show, like with the way that they have the shading. It looks more comic booky than cartoony.
Okay, I could get
and
that.
And I think I like that a lot. I think that this show as a whole, and I think that's important, I think the show, after having watched it, I really, really dug it. And I think why I did that, coming from it as a comic book fan, as opposed to a fan of the 90s cartoon, or 90s cartoons in general, I think is more rewarding. I think that's the issue. That I think if anyone has a criticism of the show, not speaking of like you, but like what I've seen online, is that it's not a revival of like the 90s show. It's not a revival of 90s cartoons as much as the marketing wants it to be. It's a revival of an X-Men franchise. This is the first X-Men cartoon or like piece of X-Men media. This is the first piece of like X-Men animation, I guess, since, oh man, I guess that they were in one of those, there was the X-Men anime that they did. That was probably the most recent. It was either that or Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah.
Except for a few characters that popped up in the Disc Wars
it's
show.
it's really been a minute for a dedicated X-Men.
Well, that's because of rights, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I think this is really good. I really enjoyed it. I think that I think the animation style is the hardest thing to get around. But when you and I were talking about it in text when the trailer dropped, and I had said that I don't really like the animation style in Invincible, and I really like that show.
Yeah.
I think that the animation, if anything, I compare it to that, where some scenes look really good, and some scenes look like they didn't spend as much time on.
Right. I think that's good. I think I'm just sort of biased because also like I don't care too much for the cell shading
Yeah.
type of things, and I'm very specific sometimes about my animation because I'm a loser.
That's
But
another thing. That's a thing that you're big on.
yeah,
I am too. I probably have some rose-colored glasses or rose quartz-colored glasses on this because
Yeah.
it's X-Men, and I think that they're doing the story and the characters really, really good justice.
they
That if the animation being what it is, that I'm kind of like, I don't care. Which is funny because that's not how I thought I was going to go into it. I thought I was going to be like, whatever.
true, and the story is I do enjoy the story. The story is dope. The only thing not and it's not even the story. The other thing I get kind of like very picky on is voice acting.
Oh, yeah.
It's a voice acting because of years of just watching cartoons and years of watching anime and knowing like respect the voice actors and what they do, but the decision to bring back some of the old cast because they don't have everybody. Some cats have passed away,
Some of them, yeah.
but they don't have everybody. But bringing back the old cast and still having some younger people doing the voices, I think it was a cool decision and thought, but played out. I don't think it worked as well as they wanted it. For instance, the person who voices Rogue,
Lenore Zahn sounds old.
she does. Yeah, she sounds like an old Rogue.
She does sound like an old lady for sure.
So it's not, and it's not nothing against them. It's just they've grown. This has been 97 was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's coming up on 30 years in in 3
Don't
years.
remind me, please.
So it's kind of like she sounds just like old.
She's the
Rogue.
one that sounds the oldest out of the cast, I'd say.
And they should replace her because, or if you were gonna have an old Rogue at some point in time, she's perfect because it sounds exactly like Rogue but aged up.
Yeah.
And
There hasn't been that much of a time skip in story for that to make sense.
yeah, at all. And same thing with Wolverine.
Yeah.
He's another cat who sounds. You could hear bits and pieces of the young Wolverine, but he still sounds older as well.
Yeah.
From what he used to be.
Yeah, I can hear that. It's not even like you can just hear it, honestly.
Yeah.
And I think that I understand why they did it. I understand how hard it would have been to do a completely new cast, a voice cast.
But think about some of the voices. Cyclops is a new cat, and he
sounds great.
He sounds pretty much like Cyclops, which you would remember Cyclops sounding. And there's a lot of these voice actors out there who know how to take the characters that they were and kind of mimic that voice and use that.
That's if you're a voice actor worth your salt, you know how to sound like someone else. That's like the whole point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And they could have did it with those characters. Like, much respect to them wanting to bring it back and keep in rotation. However, the execution of how it sounded, at times you're getting these characters who remind you that the show has been gone for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think maybe if they are able to do another season or something like that, maybe they can slowly sip them out. And maybe people just don't want to do it. I'm not sure. You don't know. I think there was probably there was a couple voice actors from the original cartoon that chose not to come back. Yeah. One of them was Jubilee's character, and that's because she wasn't Asian. And I saw that she was the one that had specified that she wanted to have someone who was Asian voice Jubilee.
Yeah.
But who knows if it was her or if it was the studios or whatever. There's a lot of different things that go into making those kind of decisions. But that makes sense to me. But who knows if people choose not to come back afterwards? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also know it's tough as a voice actor when you get replaced by someone. I know that it's difficult for a voice actor, especially when they get replaced by a big name. Like the biggest example is like Chris Pratt Mario.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, there's that other side of things where it's like, we have this person who's been voicing this character for over 30 years, and then we're going to have this huge production with this character, and we're not going to have you do the voice. I think that's worse, and I think that to avoid doing something like that, it's a tough one. It's the Chadwick Boseman problem.
Oh God. Yeah.
It's the Chadwick Boseman Black Panther problem.
Somebody's so good. Well, they've also had Steve Blum do Wolverine before,
And he's been voicing Wolverine for a long
minute.
ass time.
And he still sounds like the relevant age frame for Wolverine, because I know Steve Blum is still a little bit older, but he still has the voice to sound like a relevant age for Wolverine to be in there.
And I think Wolverine's more forgiving because you want him to sound gruff. You
Yeah.
kind of want him to sound old. Wolverine is old. That's the difference
Wolverine
between him and Rogue.
He's old as dirt.
Rogue's supposed to be like a cool 21 probably in this show. And Wolverine is like what? Like he's pushing 100, I think, at this point. I'm talking about like canonically within the show.
Yeah,
but yeah, like Rogue's supposed to be young, and she definitely sounds older.
Yeah.
And with what happens in the show, so in the second episode, with the unspoken kind of, well, actually it's spoken, but like the relationship between her and Magneto, which I love because I liked that in the comics. I liked how he was kind of the other guy between her and Gambit.
I have some thoughts about that too.
Yeah?
Together for that. But I'll let you finish.
Well, I was just going to say that the way that it works in the comics, and this is interesting, is that Magneto gets de-aged. And this ties into what happens in the premiere as well, too, because in the second episode, they're doing the trial of Magneto, which happens in the comics. And in the way that they resolve him getting put on trial is his defense lawyer, who is his defense lawyer is Gabby Holler, who is Professor X's first baby mama. First baby mama? No, second baby mama.
Professor X the whore.
First love. Correct me. I can't. I'm not gonna put numbers on it. But basically, Gabby Holler is Legion's mom.
Yeah. Okay.
So she was on like Magneto's defense team because she's like a rights lawyer at that point. It's crazy because she's also supposed to be like a Holocaust survivor, which would make her way older than she has to be.
Yeah.
But in that, the way that they defend it, and I think whoever's on his legal team basically says he got de-aged, so whatever Magneto had done previously no longer applies to him because he's lived a whole other life since then.
Yeah.
That everything that he had effectively done, he died. That was not only did he get de-aged, he died and came back to life. And if he's going to be tried for shit that he had done back before he had died and like essentially rehabilitated himself, that was the big thing. So they haven't done that in the show, and I was kind of looking through, and the heel turn that he has isn't based off of like these elements of him like basically getting punished a bunch of different ways by like being killed, getting de-aged, getting sent off to space by like a cosmic entity. Like none of that stuff happens. And so it's kind of weird because now Magneto is just kind of like a hot old guy and Rogue is way younger than him.
Extremely.
And that's another thing too, and it's a tough one to do just in general. And Magneto age discourse is a tough one. However they're gonna do it when they eventually put him in the MCU or in live action stuff moving forward, dealing with his age has like always been a point of contention because you don't want to lose the Holocaust thing. You don't want to lose the relationship he has with Xavier. But you don't want him to be too old that he's not imposing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why Fassbender was such a good one.
Yeah. But that was an interesting too, is like, then you're stuck in the past, right?
Yeah.
You're stuck in the past when he was young, which is another tough thing to do if you want to keep bringing Magneto back, which they keep doing. In the comics, he just got brought back again. Like, he can't stay dead or gone for long.
Very true. And regarding like the episodes, one, I feel episode 1 was fan service.
Yeah.
So episode 1 was fan service, and then 2 is where they really got into what they wanted to with the storyline. But this whole connection between Jean and Magneto, which also during the time frame in the comic books, Mark Brooks did one of my favorite. I mean, Rogue, not Jean. Did one of my favorite Rogue covers of like all time on X-Men. I forgot which issue it was.
Mark Brooks, and it's her and Magneto.
It's her, but it's during the time frame where she's with Magneto.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's I've like found it several times and like written it down on old phones, and old phones break, and I just got it in memory. It's like, but I forget which issue it is. But the thing that I thought could be interesting story wise was the fact that they showed that moment between those two, and then afterwards they showed Gambit like knowing about it and being upset, and then even like the next time when he's mad at what happened with Storm, he's like,
he's mad at Magneto.
Yeah, he's mad at Magneto. He's hot, and it's kind of. My theory was, is this a good point to use that for Gambit to lead him to the Marauders?
Oh, yeah. I wonder.
To branch him out to the Marauders for that.
I've been speculating a lot about what they're going to do moving forward, and it's one of those things where I haven't rewatched every old episode in the past yet, and I need to, because I need to see what they have done already and what they haven't done.
Yeah.
I know Sinister is going to play. Well, spoiler: Sinister is going to be a big part, and with the reveal at the end of the second episode, it's very obvious Sinister is going to be important because he's tied to the Madeline Pryor of it all. He's tied to Baby Cable.
Yeah.
This is all, this is all spoilery stuff, but like, if you have read X-Men comics...
Spoilers, we don't want to ruin it. Sorry, we said things, but spoilers.
Damn it. I should have done a spoiler warning beforehand. But fine. No, obviously, if we're talking about the show, we mentioned that the first 2 episodes come out. So if you haven't watched the 2 episodes at this point, do that before listening to anyone talking about the 2 episodes. But yeah, Mr. Sinister is going to be a big part of this. And with that in mind, Sinister has connections to Gambit in that sense as well, too. And that whole thing is going to be really interesting because they're pulling from a specific era of comics right now. I have no idea what to expect, right? Because it seems like they're doing late 80s comics, because in the original show, they pulled from everywhere up until that point. They were doing stuff that was happening in the comics right then and there, but they were also taking from the early Claremont 70s and 80s stuff as well too, which had already been kind of like history at that point. So and that's what they do with these shows. They take stuff from the current stuff, they take stuff from the past stuff, they make it work.
Yeah.
And it seems like right now what they're doing is a similar thing. So I don't know what they're doing, except I can already tell from stuff with Scott and quote unquote Jean wanting to leave the X-Men, him having a kid, Storm losing her powers, and then the trial of Magneto. That all happens within a similar realm, a similar era in the comics. So I'm kind of like, okay, this is kind of where we're looking at.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're going to do next. I'm really excited that they're doing, just from episode 2 is my favorite for sure, because they do so many different things in there that really make me go, oh, what are they going to do next?
The line that they had Magneto give, like at the end of it, that was such the way that they set it up with him bringing the council.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Just so high above Earth and showing them the vision. Showing them like the view of Earth. and not even really kind of acknowledge them at that moment, just saying like, this is what Charles wanted to remind me of, that how big this planet is and how kind of insignificant our minor corals could be,
Yeah.
or are, and that we could do better because there's so much more. But the fact that, you know, he did it and they're all afraid, they're all
Yeah.
scared as hell, and then drops them with that, like, you don't want me to let you down.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, both.
As
The
he's
double
holding them
entendre.
almost in
it's
orbit,
like,
yeah.
I looked at it, I was like, that was writing, the setup, everything perfect. Because that conveyed so much,
Yeah.
just with that little moment. And it showed, for that moment, it showed, okay, there's a true change in Magneto. Magneto is still, he's changed, but he's still himself.
Yeah.
To the extent that you need him to be. And by like, goddamn, these people have felt something that that's so much of a better threat, saying you don't want me to let you down,
Yeah.
up there, instead of hurting somebody and saying that.
Yeah.
Just putting that, showing them that yeah, I could drop you from here and it's a wrap. Like, what is anybody gonna do
I
to
brought
me?
you up here,
Yeah.
but the only, just the strength of my powers alone.
Yeah, and nobody's gonna do anything to me. But the ideal that I'm trying to behold myself to is, for your own sake, you also would rather have me keep
As a hero.
Yeah, keep
As
to
on your
that.
side. Like him wanting to do better. That's what he says. He says,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do better. Don't make me let you down.
Yeah.
And I think that heroic Magneto is my favorite because it's heroic in the sense of him. It's him just trying to do something that he wants to do, but hates the way he has to do it.
Yeah.
Which is being nice to humans. You know what I mean? And however it is, it usually involves like Xavier and him just in general. Like, I love that because him being a reluctant hero is way more interesting than him being, like, I think, a villain just for the sake of villainy.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's an old way of thinking. Literally, like he was a villain in the comics up until Claremont got his hands on him and was like, why is this guy a villain? You know what I mean? And gave him backstory to explain that. And I think that when you make, and they did that in the original cartoon too, where he was a villain, but you see more and more stuff with him arise. I just watched the last episode this morning, and he's still pretty villainous in that. And it's still he's still very Saturday morning cartoon villain, where like they have to have a villain who is doing bad things for them to stop. And that makes sense. This has a more mature tone, I think. I feel like this show has taken on a more mature tone. They know that they're making a show for people in their 30s that want to feel like they're watching a Saturday morning cartoon. And I like that. I think it's hard to do a show for such a wide age range of people because they also want to appeal to a younger audience as well, I think.
Of course.
Yeah, right? It's on Disneyplus. Yeah. It's not rated, doesn't have a high rating.
And you want those new younger viewers in so you could make this whole entire product last as well.
They have a really good opportunity to get younger people, whatever age range. I'm not going to try to be specific about the demographic, but the truth the truth is X-Men don't really have a young crowd when it comes to media anymore because of the way the rights have been tumultuous over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
That's because they don't do a cartoon. Spider-Man, there's been a Spider-Man cartoon every single era of TV over the last 20 years. Sure. And my little brother is a huge Spider-Man fan. He loves Spider-Man. And most kids do. However, he has always liked Spider-Man and he always has media to fall back on.
Yeah. Okay.
X-Men's not like that. You either have to be a fan of the Fox movies, you have to be into that kind of genre media, which is very different, or you had to have read the comics if you want to be an X-Men fan.
Yeah.
There was like I said, one of the last cartoons, Wolverine and the X-Men was the last X-Men cartoon, and that still came out a while ago.
I mean, shit, even X-Men Evolution.
And X-Men Evolution was
specifically.
and that's the thing too. I grew up. I'm of the age where X-Men, the original X-Men animated series, was playing reruns. I wasn't watching it as it came out.
Yeah.
I was watching X-Men Evolution when it was coming out. That's still a long ass time ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So this has a more mature tone, and Magneto being he's just so good. I'm a huge Magneto fan.
Yeah.
And I think that they were doing him solid justice. And yeah, I'm really, really digging that. I'm glad that that's what they're doing.
I had a friend back in the day, right when started calling Cyclops Scott all the time. We didn't call him Cyclops, just call him Scott.
Really? Like they were best friends?
No, I would just call Scott Cyclops Scott because I'm like, he sucks. Just call him by his first name, but I had a friend who called Magneto Magnus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He would not stop. And it was like, you mean Magnus? You fucking love Magneto. But it's cool seeing Magneto get the love. I want to see where they go with that. Scott is getting a lot of love.
Resurgence.
Like, the love is coming back for him. I see so much shit of people talking about, oh man, that fight scene where he used his beam to push him back and all that type of shit. I was like,
that's how he's supposed to fight, by the way. That's what people don't understand, is that Cyclops can be a one-dimensional action hero kind of character if you don't have some creativity.
Yes.
And you don't think about what Cyclops can do as a person. And the fact of the matter is that he's very, very trained. He has a very specific way he looks at the world that involves things like geometry, high mathematics, strategy, physics, all of those things play in the way he uses powers. So why the hell wouldn't he fight like that?
That's why I think they're a fan of Scott, or they understand like how that character's dynamics is, because the minute when that fucker knocked off his goggles, he did the oh no. It was like, nah, I'm just playing, and hit him with it.
Yeah.
It was good to see, because usually people try to make him like that Velma meme. Where his glasses come up. Oh, I can't do anything. I'm so afraid to open my eyes with my powers, because
they make it his weakness. Yeah. And that's not his weakness. That's his protection against you.
Yeah.
That's the thing keeping him from killing everybody. That's not like his Achilles heel. That's a thing that he puts on himself. It's very Superman, where it's like you think Superman has a weakness, but Superman's weakness is that he's trying not to kill you.
Yes.
In the same sense, that's how Cyclops is on a level. Not to that extent, but and there's a lot of comparisons between those two characters, because they're seen as the Boy Scout. They're seen as kind of like the people have criticisms of them being cardboard characters, but in the reality, they play a certain role, which is that they have the moral high ground, but they have this sense of optimism, or this sense of virtue that I think is not fun for a lot of people to think about. Yeah. It's not an interesting character to some people, because you would think they don't have flaws. But what that really means is, especially in an ensemble, it works really well, because you need to have someone. It's the Captain America thing. You want to have someone that is going to attest against someone wanting to do something morally unjust in a group setting. But at the same time, there are also these people that have a lot of virtue and do have a lot of depth, because they're also these people that have a lot of power, and the only thing keeping them back from using it in a way that would be really scary is those exact same virtues.
Right. Very, very true. And it's good to see that Cyclops is getting this way now. I'm hoping, like my hope, and we could get into like kind of theories on what's going forward, is the my gosh.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of noises.
There's sound out there. Sorry.
There's less planes though, which is
The
good.
world is worlding right now. But is like I told you, I bought Uncanny X-Men, Bendis' run of Uncanny X-Men. Gonna finally finish all that because I was reading some of it. But that
Fantastic run. Best Cyclops.
And that's Scott right there, where you see Scott prove essentially some of the big talk is that, and you'll know more better than this better than I do, is that Scott is compared to Xavier, compared to Magneto. Scott was right.
Yeah.
Cyclops, like, he is truly the X-Men. He's truly the savior of the mutant race.
Yeah.
And just that playing out, especially in that Bendis run, that great run, that's what I'm kind of hoping they would push towards. The thing that kind of pushed that idea to me was at the end of it, when they had young Jean show up.
Yeah.
And during that time was also the all new X-Men, when they decided, like,
breaking up. Did you think, was that a young Jean? I thought that was just Jean.
I thought that was young Jean.
I thought it was a captured Jean because the other Jean is Madeline Pryor.
Yeah, it's gonna be good to see now.
I hadn't even thought about the time displaced teen X-Men, but they keep showing that picture of the original 5, and there's something there. You actually might be onto something there. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, because it was really weird to continue to show that picture.
Yeah,
and they showed
because
it
that's not even canon.
No, and they made it prominent spots for no reason.
Yeah, it kept showing up in both episodes. They kept looking back on it.
Yeah.
I think there was one episode of the original cartoon where they do go back and show the 05, but I haven't seen it in a long time. But for the most part, they don't really touch on it because I think when they adapt new X-Men media, they try to avoid doing the 05 because it's kind of a boring cast compared to every other X-Men team after that, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to do time display stuff with Bendis, which I think is awesome, you kind of have to at least establish it.
And you got to remember, that's also the time frame where that was right at that big moment where after all new X-Men and Uncanny X-Men, where they had those issues with Fox, and they're like, we're not making any more new X-Men, where they had that big old gap.
Yeah.
Where they're like not going to do anything new because they didn't want them to use it. That was like right after those storylines. So it wouldn't be far-fetched to think that's like kind of in the forefront of their minds, or in their minds at some points with those.
I think that's probably, if they're going to do that, that'll be some of the most recent stuff that they'll do from the comics. I don't think we're going to see Krakoa stuff at all.
No, because we already mentioned Genosha.
Yeah.
And they kind of didn't allude to any other spot.
And I hope they don't. There's not enough time. They have so much other stuff to do. If they're gonna, I'd love to see Krakoa get adapted into something. I like what they're doing now. They have a lot of stuff to get through to do. Then I'm enjoying that before they get to that.
Yeah.
They mentioned Genosha, and that's interesting. I think that comes up in the old cartoon. I don't remember. I think it was called something else. But Genosha was featured heavily in Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see what they do with that. I don't think Genosha is a really interesting thing in the comics because it's apartheid, right? That's what they're doing. They're doing apartheid as allegory and metaphors, which I love. But then at the end of it, it turns into another Holocaust thing because they blow it up.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to try to touch on that.
I don't think Cassandra Nova is going to come in and kill 16 million mutants.
No.
That might happen in Deadpool, though.
Yeah, that's what I'd be like. That's
which
more
is pretty crazy.
More of that type of thing.
The fact that we might actually get that happening soon is pretty insane. I think I think it's rewarding to be a fan of the X-Men again, which is a crazy thing to think about because it hasn't been like that. Except if you were reading comics over the last few years, it hasn't been really rewarding to be an X-Men fan in media.
Yeah, I mean, even now with 97 being big and being very welcome, like, which I'm happy that the reception
It's pretty high.
Yeah, the reception.
You're gonna have your naysayers.
But overall the reception is very high and people are loving it. But it's kind of reaction like those horrible movies like X1, X2, X3.
See, I'm
destroying Scott within like 5 seconds.
Yeah. Oh man, don't get me started.
And then creating a problem that he should have easily been there for.
Yeah.
It was tailor-made for him. They're like, nah, we killed the guy who this problem was kind of made for him. But
they like doing that with those movies.
Yeah.
I have a special place in my heart for the first 2 X-Men Fox movies because I think that what they were doing was really cool. I think that it got too big for its own britches very quickly after obviously when they did X-Men 3, because I think they wanted to do a more comic booky thing with the Phoenix. You can't really do that when you're telling a grounded story. And I think that they had a hard time with that. And then everything after that, I've expressed disdain for.
Oh my gosh.
I liked First Class. Same thing too.
Yeah.
I think First Class was supposed to be X-Men Origins Magneto. Yeah. But after the shitty reception of X-Men Origins Wolverine, they changed gears. But they did a lot of the same elements of what they were going to do for that.
Yeah.
And with that was a good movie. It has things that I don't like.
Of course, yeah.
Like, for example, you want to talk about killing off a character that they could have used. They literally did that with a character that's unkillable.
Yeah, that's still.
And then in Days of Future Past, their whole thing is they're trying to save Mystique because they use Mystique's powers to make the Sentinels adaptable.
Yeah.
That's not Mystique's powers. They had a character that was adaptable, and they killed him in the first movie.
It was very. I went back and watched Days of Future Past like 2 days ago, and I'm going through this shit. I'm like, man, they really were just. They were just like, all right, let's just do it. Who got ideas?
So I have my own issues with that, and then of course the following ones after that are just bad for a lot.
That don't exist. Yeah.
Yeah, those movies are just bad. But yeah, I think it's more rewarding. I think we're in an interesting time, and my qualms before the show had came out, which is this ties into MCU movies period right now, which is in the way that they've been introducing X-Men elements into the MCU has made me nervous.
Oh, man.
Because of the exact thing that this X-Men 97 was supposed to be a kind of like the ultimate showing of, which is 90s nostalgia or nostalgia for X-Men properties in the past bleeding into current projects.
Yeah, one of the things that I heard, and I did not like it at all.
Oh no, I've heard a lot of that stuff where I'm like, oh no. What did you hear?
Was it Kevin Feige? Yeah, it's Kevin Feige. I don't know why every time I think of Kevin Feige, I think of the NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell. It's very weird.
You think of what?
NFL commissioner, Roger Goodell. It makes no sense. But
you know that's going to go right over my head.
Yeah. But Kevin Feige apparently had told him like one of his conditions was bringing back the original music for that. And
which is tied to the cartoon.
It is, but it was talking about for 97.
Yeah,
and
which I like.
I get it, but I'm like, dude, if that's your
caveat,
yeah, that's terrible. And it for me, it just showed a sign of still higher ups don't completely understand. Still, the people who should understand certain things, like what made it great. It's like the music was cool, but that's not what made it.
Yeah,
that's not and it was fearful to me because they said that, and it appears to be true. And if it is true, please don't let that bleed over into live action because you guys are gonna. Your mindset is obviously in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Like you, luckily enough, had somebody who you had a team that cared about the X-Men.
Yeah.
And cared about making a good show. Thank God. But what if you don't? And that's you're like, well, this is what I want to make sure that we have in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, like somebody, like the next thing is like, well, when we have Wolverine, let's make sure he's 6'2" again.
Yeah.
Has to be. And it's like,
yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
When you keep these things precious as like a comic fan or as a fan of certain properties, because I've been wanting them to get away. This is the thing that's interesting. X-Men in the 90s are the most popular comic out.
yes.
X-Men #1 is one of the highest, I think, is it still to this day the highest selling comic #1? It's up there.
Yeah,
it was record breaking and it holds a high record to this day. X-Men comics in the 90s are bad. Like those first 12 issues of that run are good because Claremont was working on them on his way out.
Yeah.
After that, it goes through a creative hell. It goes through the era of comics in general that suffered because of the guys that would go on to do Image, leaving a huge power vacuum, people wanting to copy that style.
Doing the extreme era.
Yeah. It's a not very well-loved era of comics, and it shows. So the fact of the matter that the cartoon made it really popular too, but it was also current. So the issue that I have is that anytime you try to go back to the 90s, you're going back to an era of comics that weren't very good.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one to do. There's stuff that I like from that period, and I think there's a good way to do it. I think though that when you put your nostalgia goggles on for this era that was popular or selling, isn't exactly what you should do when you're trying to. I think a lot of people think like, oh well, X-Men is good. X-Men was good in the 90s. And then when they think about what was good about X-Men, they think of the Phoenix Saga. They think of they think of Days of Future Past,
Yeah, they get those
which are all before the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think there's a dissonance that happens, and I get worried. I was worried. I think if this, I don't know, it's a tough one. Because this show is doing, I think, well. I think it's putting up good streaming numbers, whatever that means.
Yeah, right? No one knows what it means.
Yeah, no one knows what that means. That's a hard metric. But I think it's popular, and I think that Disney, Marvel Studios, the powers that be are going to take note. And that's happening in the comics now, too, because I'm seeing elements of that coming up again, too, in the way the new releases for the comics are coming up in July or in the summer this year, and it looks like they're dialing back, which is unfortunate.
Are you talking about the various thousands of storylines they try to run at the same time, or are you just talking about new releases in general?
I'm talking about the new comics that they're doing. They're doing a fresh start again.
Oh my god, yeah, they got to stop doing that.
And it's a bummer because I've obviously been a huge fan.
Yeah.
But it looks like there's elements of 90s popping up, I think, and they've been doing that lately too, and it's a hard thing to get away from because it's so popular. It's so iconic. Those Jim Lee designs are still in the show now because they're so good. They're so popular, I should say.
Sure.
Whether you think they're good or not, when someone thinks of Cyclops, they're seeing him. I have an action figure of it. They're picturing him in the blue with the yellow straps.
He does have the action figure, but also, which is not going to be seen, he has 2 short boxes of X-Men.
And I actually have the Jim Lee.
One of them to Jim Lee.
I know. It's a hard thing to get away from. And I think it's a good design, but you can't get away from it. Rogue, having that jacket in that green and yellow suit is like so hard to get away from.
True, but more importantly, her hair with the white being on top.
Oh, yeah.
It's also important because I hated how sometimes people have got away from that.
Oh, yeah.
Like, try to diminish the gray.
Yeah, you have to have it. Well, the fact that she has like a big blowout with like short bangs, it's so 90s.
It is.
But it looks good, and like One thing that I love, and I think one thing that I'm glad they're bringing back, and I think that you have to, is having Rogue have Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers' powers, because she's not as interesting without him. I think when you do in the cartoon, she's the powerhouse,
Yeah.
right? She's the strong one. They don't have Colossus. They don't have Warpath. They don't have any of these other like strong X-Men characters. It's her. She's the one that's doing all of the literal heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And then if you take that away, which is what they did in the Fox movies, it's hard to do. She's a different character, and I think what people liked about her is that she was bombastic and she was the strong one.
That's what you want from her.
Yeah.
Am I mistaken with thinking that they touched on slightly within these last episodes? They touched on her being a villain prior.
Yeah, they did.
Because
I don't think they show. Maybe there's a flashback.
I don't think
episode.
they showed it, but
In the old cartoon, they might have touched on it, but they're definitely alluding to it, which I love.
Yeah.
Because Rogue was a terrorist. Like
she has a villain arc. Yeah. She has her own villain arc that a majority of like the people don't know about.
Yeah.
She's been reading the books, which is it'll be interesting. Like there's so much they could do going forward.
Yeah.
In the series, and so much that it seems that is at their grasp. What I keep hearing, besides the showrunner being fired. What happened with that? Because I forgot that happened right before, and then I watched the show, loved it, didn't even think about it. I have no idea. The last thing I heard is they were trying to figure out, and then because it was still kind of muddy, and then somebody saying something about like an OnlyFans account. I don't know if it like what to extent, but that just seems like rumor stuff too.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
if it was a behind the scenes thing that was because of like professionalism, whatever that might look like, that's different. And I don't want to say I hope that's what it is, but I kind of hope that's what it is because so far I'm liking the creative process of the show.
Well, apparently too, the second season's already done.
Okay.
The second season's already done written wise.
Okay.
From what I was hearing with all this being happening, and it was already greenlit. Now they got to find another showrunner. I love Joaquin Dos Santos, but that's because I also watched a lot of DC animated shit.
Oh, is he part of that?
Joaquin, this is fine. Yeah, this is not bad.
My cat is like
being a cat
in your face.
Yeah.
And popping the couch out. Please, that gets picked up.
But Joaquin Dos Santos is is part of like the DC Justice League Unlimited.
Okay.
The good slate of movies that they had.
Okay.
Also did help with Across the Spider-Verse.
Okay. So fantastic portfolio.
Yeah. Joaquin Dos Santos is a fantastic, amazing portfolio. Like part of me is like, oh man, maybe he could take over. But at the same time, I'm like, no, just keep him with DC.
Yeah.
DC product.
They need
projects.
They need the best people in their team that they have.
God, they do. I'm so much. We'll touch on that probably in another episode of James Gunn and Peter Safran. Like my absolute, probably bias, like trusting them. But
I do too, though. But I think that's because they needed somebody to upturn what they were doing.
Yeah,
and I think he's the perfect guy for it. We'll see. We'll see how it's executed, but yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that is. But like going forward, apparently, like there's a lot that they could touch on within the X-Men world. And it seems like they're putting out branches to go anywhere.
Yeah. And maybe it's stuff that they don't touch on. Maybe it's something that they're just bringing up, like which I like. I like when they can do that. You know what I mean? Like her saying, "Oh, I have a past," or they have a past. That looks like it's gonna play out probably on screen. But like they reference stuff. And it's like, okay, this is just a nod to that it happened. They're not necessarily going to be like, okay, then this episode's about this thing. You know what I mean? So we'll see. And I have good expectations for that.
I do.
Speaking of Rogue, and I don't know if you still wanted to talk about this, but in regards, and this also ties into what we were saying earlier when we were talking about the way they've been introducing X-Men things into the MCU, is the Marvels.
Yeah.
Because besides, like, without saying what we might have, like, how that movie played out, if the villain would have been Rogue,
Oh my God.
or a Mystique or somebody, I know it's hard to do, and it would have been a different movie, especially with it being a cosmic movie.
Yeah.
But if they would have had a lot of similar elements, kept the same cast of characters, but they would have touched on that. Maybe they're doing that in another movie. Like, that would make sense for me moving forward, but that would have been incredible. And I'm bummed because I think we talked about this previously, off recording, that I liked the movie.
Yeah. The movie was for anybody who would like to hate on it. The movie was good. You could go fuck yourself.
I think it was really good. I think it was a good concept.
Yeah.
I think the cast of characters, at least the three mains, were really, really. I think Brie Larson wanted to be there.
It really did feel like that. Yeah. The chemistry between all of them, I loved. So I didn't finish watching Miss
Marvel.
I didn't finish.
Iman Vellani is really good.
Yeah, I didn't finish watching the show. One of the biggest things I gleaned from not finishing watching the show was, as I watched it, I was kind of, at the time, which I might revisit, was I don't think this is for me. It wasn't. I couldn't say it was good or bad or anything. I was just like, I don't think this is for me.
It's very teeny bopper.
But the way that her character played out in that movie, completely fit.
Yeah,
it fit so.
That movie I would have panned this movie if she wasn't in it.
Yeah, and then it didn't play. It didn't give the normal when you have sort of teenage character, especially with the hero worship. You get fucking terrible teenage characters and stuff lately. And it's like, man, I just fucking hate them. Right. Or they do shit where it's like, hey, this is going to be a problem. And you know it's going to be a problem. But for some reason, they're like, nah, we're going to write them to do this because it's a problem. Yeah. And then there's nothing that happens because it's like, oh my God, you're just so fucking annoying. And no, she played it well. Their chemistry was so great together. It was nice. It was dope. I really enjoyed the movie.
I think the hardest thing about that movie was the villain.
Yeah.
I think that she had good. I think I liked what her motivations were. I think I liked the importance of it in the story. But I think that, like, the way they resolved it was kind of. It just wasn't interesting. I don't think she was dynamic as she could have been. I think that was a tough one, but it's not really about her, I guess. I think it's like, I feel like it's more about them.
Yeah, the only one of my issues was Lee Pace, the Roman the Accuser.
Oh yeah,
such a great point, such a great character, and then you bring up another character who's just like another accuser. Yeah.
That's an interesting thought. Like, she literally, she had the same whole shtick.
Shit was purple as well too. Yeah. Like everything she did.
But it wasn't the Power Stone, which is like such a big part of that dumb thing from earlier, which was hard to get into.
Yeah, so it's kind of like
they did so much work to do that.
Exactly. You could have went a different route, but it was still. Again, it's on Disneyplus. It was still good to go and watch it. So
I think if you didn't want to watch it because it's not your cup of tea, it has some really good action. Like, I think it had some really good action sequences because of the concept of the three of them doing that swap thing, which I think that was just so fun to watch. It was. I knew that they were going to do something like that, and I think if the movie would have. It had plenty of it in there already, and I think it set the scene. It was just fun. I don't know. I think it was good that they did it for a movie. I don't think it would have made sense for a show. No. But that was such a cool thing. There was a lot of cool visuals with that. I think it was a well thought of. Their dynamic was just good. I think that everything else was difficult to do. I didn't like the way it ended with Monica, but I think that what you can expect from MCU movies now is that there's two endings to every
Yeah.
movie. There's an ending to the story, and then there's an ending that's technically the beginning of another one, which is unfortunate.
And that was dumb too, because she's like, when it opened up, she was like, yeah, this is another dimension entirely.
Yeah.
Like an entirely whole new dimension. And then she wakes up and sees her mom.
Yeah.
And then she's like, Mom?
Yeah.
Mom? And couldn't get over the fact that it's like, listen, I get it. Your mom died while you were in the blip. You understood it. But you knew from the jump
that you were in another dimension.
Yeah, immediately.
But I mean, I guess, like, how fucked up would it be if you found out you went to another dimension, or you went to another dimension and the first person you see is your dead mom? Like, that is pretty fucked up, I guess.
It is.
Like, you're not just seeing, like, an alternate version of, like, Captain America or somebody. Your mom, who, as far as you're concerned, isn't a superhero. She's just a pilot.
Yeah, she was just a sickly pilot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It might be cynical, because I'm the same person who's it's like people who say, "Oh man, if like your mom was a zombie, or your brothers or your family was like zombies, could you get rid of them?" I'd be like, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
In a heartbeat, because
I'd cry about it after.
I would not. I would automatically know, like, damn, they're gone.
Yeah.
Boop.
Yeah, I guess if it's different if they've been dead, right?
So it's, well, even if they weren't been dead, they just happen to change, and like you see the zombie change, it's like, man, this sucks, but I gotta do what I gotta do. So I guess in that part, because me, it's making a hard thing to fathom, like being in a different dimension and seeing somebody. If I had that same scenario, magically, to be out of this world would be so beautiful.
When the other person you see is Kelsey Grammer. It's never a good day when you run into Kelsey Grammer.
Oh man,
it is however old he is now.
You just got to put him on a stage so he could fall off of it, and it'll be fine. He'll just
because
walk right off.
Bringing back Kelsey Grammer is crazy. Bringing back Kelsey Grammer and putting him in a mocap suit is even crazier.
Yo, yes, because he wasn't. That was really weird for me to grasp, because I'm looking at it. I was like, hold on, wait, that's not a suit.
Yeah.
That's, oh, God.
Which I think, if you're going to do Beast moving forward, I don't have an issue. I don't know. It's a tough one. Because bringing it back to the second, whatever you want to call them, the prequel redo X-Men movies, they had a hard time with Beast. They didn't know what to do with him. They had a really good thing I think they did in First Class, which was have Nicholas Hoult have to wear. It's a hard thing to do, but at the same time, I think it worked. Introduce Nicholas Hoult, and then put him in a practical suit that looked good. I thought that first suit looked good. I think that's what you do. They did the same thing with Kelsey Grammer in X-Men 3, who was good casting in 2005.
Because the way that they went with that beast wasn't they focused more so on the scientific side of Beast than anything else.
But he had some good action in that. I'll never forget the one scene they had. It wasn't Kelsey Grammer. I'm sure it was a stunt man.
Yeah, of course.
They had him do some one fight in that movie, and I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. I liked that. But yeah, so they bring him back. They don't do a practical thing. They put him in CGI. And they put him in CGI to make him look like the 90s cartoon Beast that we're seeing right now in X-Men 97. It's such a weird thing. And they did the same thing with Patrick Stewart's Professor X in Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, yeah.
Where they had Patrick Stewart come back, but they put him in the 90s hover chair.
Look at that. We've come back around. That's all a full circle.
Well, that's because that's what I'm saying. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're doing it with Wolverine in Deadpool 3.
Which is Deadpool and Wolverine now.
Yeah, sorry. Deadpool and Wolverine, which is cool. But that's the same thing. I'm like, so they're bringing these characters back. They're using Fox actors and likenesses, but they're redoing it. They're reskinning them with 90s, specifically 90s cartoon, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
Because they're, like you said, they brought the theme back. The theme is played.
Oh, it's played in Multiverse of Madness.
It played in Miss Marvel, and it played in. Does it play at the end of Marvels?
I don't know. I gotta take a look at that.
Like, because they've been doing that, and I'm just like, okay, there's a 90s cartoon thing they're doing. So I have no idea what to expect for Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm curious to see if it's Fox versus Hugh Wolverine, or if it's this universe that they're taking all these new X-Men characters out of.
That'd be interesting to see. Well, I feel like it's time to wrap this up.
Yeah,
but
I think that's a good way. You had mentioned it has come full circle.
It has. I would say the last thing I would say is going forward with it. I think I know the answer. Are we watching X-Men 97 going forward?
Of course.
Yeah.
I'm watching it with great interest, for sure.
I am too. I'm looking forward to it and seeing it.
I hope they don't let me down.
Oh God. You have to burn everything and kill everybody.
They're doing okay, though. I think that we should definitely come back and revisit at some point.
Probably will once it gets canceled. All right.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. No. What? All right. Cool. Perfect. That was it.